The S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100. And before we go into anything, I want to say there's a new rule on the channel. We no longer celebrate anything until something has a confirmed breakout. I don't care if we're only 2 points away.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
But now that that's out of the way, we need to start focusing on where we're at and how we're moving. The first thing we're looking at here is the Nasdaq. And we talked a little bit yesterday of things that need to happen, things that we're looking forward to here in the market. Now, we didn't have too much action today. The big news on the day, or the big tipping point, and again, all that I could see, the thing that was really pushing or giving a direction in the market, I'm going to the 15-minute for you, was this. So I posted this on Twitter earlier today, so you could have saw it. You kind of had this shorter term downtrend line right here that you were breaking out of. Okay, you were breaking out of it to start the day, pushing up, looking very good, moving healthy, fine. And then you dropped immediately at 9:30, just going basically straight down from there. Now, what I will say is that on the day, we look at overall movement. The Nasdaq down about 1.1%. ES down 0.3, 0.4%. The Dow essentially ended green. For the majority of the day, it was almost up I don't want to say a percent. It was almost up 0.5%. And then the Russell ended green as well. So as we look at the market, it was very interesting behavior. For sure, interesting, not ideal, not what I wanted to see. But the big thing here was the movement and kind of what started moving you. That's just from what I noticed. Jameson ad. You love to see it, right? So you can see that this was our pool that came out, the Dallas manufacturing. It's still very bad. I mean, negative 29, negative 23, whatever. It's still going to be really bad. Forecast was negative 26, so it was a beat. But I was reading multiple forecasts. Some had it at a negative 20. Some had it at negative 26. So I was unsure if that's what caused this. And I will say manufacturing data is very important because it gives you a role on how businesses are doing and then expectations of growth with the market and the economy. So it's very important. And to give you an example, going back into 2021, 2020, you can see very positive. In 2021 specifically, when business was booming, if you will, look at the run that you had. Really, really great, right? That's what you wanted to see. And you can see obviously we're in a terrible area right now, very slow movement here on the market. So when we go back in there, I want that to be understood and known. But I can only say this so many times, and you're gonna see the example here in a second. You can trade the downside. I personally am just not interested in the downside for myself. It's not for a day trading perspective, a scalping perspective, it doesn't make sense for me. And I still have all my positions. I'm about 11-ish% down on AMD. Netflix is a very small position. That's almost size for zero for myself, but that's about 16% down for me. These are all 3 to 5 months out. And then Google that one is down a little bit, but that one was up over 12%. So it's I have targets for myself. I have my risk reward managed out, right? Over the past few weeks, y'all saw the withdrawal, the $40,000 withdrawal. You saw how much I've made. So my risk is associated to myself. I'm not telling anyone to go crazy. If you want, you can wait for that confirmation like we mentioned in yesterday's video. So I want that to always be very clear. But before we go into any more content, I ask you to do 2 things. Liking and subscribing helps out the channel tremendously. I don't want to waste too much time with this. Also, too, if you're interested, the Discord link is down below. I don't recommend them to join if you just want to get signals. Right now, I haven't really been trading. I've been sitting pretty patiently, getting to some swing trades, some longer dated positions, but no real day trades for myself. I only trade when I feel comfortable, right? So you're going to get access to all that, but ultimately, this teaches you what we're looking at throughout the day, why we're trading, why we're getting in, why we're getting out. Going over your trade journal, understanding what's maybe wrong with your day trading, what you could fix, what you could tweak. You're going to get hands-on approach this. And then as well as the over 900 members in the Discord right now. So again, if you're interested, the link is down below, but we have a lot of free content, a lot of educational content. You just scroll up, you can go to the homepage, go to education. We have tons of education if you want to learn for absolutely free. Before you even want to join Discord, I recommend going through a lot of this stuff first, right? Just to get yourself educated so you get the ball rolling. But let's get back into the video. So if I'm looking here, what you wanted to see or what you want to see for the downside opportunity, in my personal opinion, okay, just bear with me, is about right here. So if we go to the 2-hour time frame, we can pull out right here. You can really see, you could really argue right about there, but again, it's not a pretty zone, but however you want to say it, it's not. What you'd be looking for is a break of 15,000, a retest, and a pushback down. That is the opportunity if you want to trade the downside. Now, if we're getting to higher time frames to actually flip the trend to bearish on the Nasdaq, I think you have to make a lower low. It's a long way to go. I think you need to break below like 14.2 on the minimum. But you really didn't have a pullback there, so it's hard to even say. Just to get started, you got to break below 14.2. Going into ES, as you can see here, I think you got to get below 14.25. You have a long way to go. Like you've went on a massive run. We pushed almost 15% here on the SPY. So you look really good. Like the fact that we're pulling back, I'm just like, okay, it's not super surprising. I would have loved for us to get the continuation, like I said, but it is what it is. The Dow clearly just sitting at this key level as well, as we've been mentioning, in the clear ascending triangle also. RTY, the Russell, what's happening here? Again, you're still retesting and bouncing off of those previous highs that you had here. Remember that box you traded in for like 2-3 months? You're just holding onto the top and the 200 SMA below that. That's ultimately where you're at right now. Okay, understand that. That's where we're at. That's how we're moving. Now, when we go to something like the 15 and we just look at the intraday action, there was big concerns for myself. Okay, so if we look at the action today, what I will say to the downside is you kind of followed and actually had textbook movement, right? So you did get the downside opportunity on Nasdaq. You had the bear flag at the end of the day. You broke down a little bit and you're kind of just sitting there. Now, what I want to say before we dive any further, the biggest factor of how I trade comes into volume, supply and demand, key levels. It's essentially it. Okay. Look at the volume of what we had today. First up, we'll look at the SPY, historical data. You had about 71 million. This ramped up in the after hours. I believe the last 10 minutes of trading, you had around 55 million. So all in all, pretty decent that you ramped up a little bit here. Still extremely low volume. I'm going to tell you right now, especially during the trading session. Very, very low volume. Okay. The Nasdaq, Qs. Well, look here. What's happening here with the volume? Historical. A little bit higher, okay? And it makes sense that you had a little bit higher volume in Qs because that had the most movement. But still, look at the volume that you had on the breakout to the upside. And I want that to be clear, is that we're still just operating with minimal volume. Like we haven't really had one big breakout sell day, one big day of sellers stepping in. Okay, I want to make that really clear. You don't need to have crazy volume, but usually you'll have at least one day to signify a reversal or, changing direction, massive selling, people getting out of positions. You haven't had one of those yet. Okay, that's the red flag here for me. And that's the thing that's just been concerning, but also what ties back into not wanting to trade this, right? You can make money. Everyone has their strategy. And I was doing a mentorship call this past week, and the big conversation was having a trading plan and what works for you and understanding when you have your best opportunity to win. And for myself, this is just a personal thing with me and how I trade. For myself, what works best for me is understanding the higher time frame trend that we're in on the daily or weekly, right? Understanding how we're moving and then focusing on trading that specific trend, right? So if we're trading in an uptrend, then focusing a majority of my trades to the upside. Does that mean that I go long every single day? That is not what that means. That means that some days I'm going to be stuck on the sidelines. That means that some days I'm not going to take any trades, that I might just have to be really patient, right? But I've noticed when I focused on those longs or focus on the shorts in 2022, if you were here on the channel, you remember 2022, I was a perma bear, right? I was just continually just short. I would basically wasn't bullish until after the end of January, right? And so you'll understand, and if you start to just open up your way of thinking to it, do you have more opportunity? You can go all the way back to January, right? All the way back to January. If you were to go long or short, let's say you caught the exact top here, right? And you wrote it down to the swing low here. But where were you making more money on most of these swing opportunities? to the upside. It is what it is, right? That's not to say the market's going to go up forever or anything like that. That's just what works for me. So again, as we broke this trend and have been trading just to the upside and riding, view up on the daily here, looks good, right? And that's just where we're at and how we're moving. So until we make a lower low, until we, break a previous high, I'm just kind of relaxing, not doing much. It's just kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm not going to force anything. There's no reason for myself to. Okay. And so going into anything else in other areas of the market here, VIX today, you had some upside here. Okay. But again, people are going to talk about VIX and what's happening. Again, VIX, you bounced from 1280, which was like 104 week lows, up to like 14.5. But anytime VIX has bounced recently, it's kind of been just getting destroyed. So I don't think VIX is too important to watch right now. It is going up a little bit, worth mentioning. DXY continues to sit and make this descending triangle at lows. You are coming back into that demand area, trying to bounce out of it. But again, not a lot of confidence here from me. You're just kind of reacting to that area. Not a big sell. You kind of gapped up this morning and then pushed down for the rest of the day. You go down to yield, what's happening here. The 2-year, 5-year, 10 years slowly edging down on the day. But it's worth mentioning the 2 years holding up like the best out of all of them, the 2 and the 30, which is a weird combination to be holding up compared to the others. But that's just where we're at and what's happening there. So no real insight to yields today. There's really no reaction from the movement. Gold sitting out lows as well. Energy continues to dip again. And that's the flow of what's happening here in the market today. Nothing too exciting. Nothing that's really going to give you a clear direction here. The biggest things I'm going to be watching over the next 24 hours and throughout this week. 1, can IWM stay above 180? That's a big thing that we need to be watching for a risk-on mentality. 2, what happened in the big Powell speaking this week. I did discuss in my yesterday's video on Sunday explaining what's happening with Powell speaking. He will be talking, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday. I said I didn't think Thursday would be the biggest or most important speech that he had, but it most likely will upon reading further into it. It's the Economic Forum, and it's basically like a whole bunch of nations get together and they discuss how their inflation is doing. So hearing the collective opinion of other nations doing terrible, like the UK, which is doing awful in Europe, I don't know if that's going to be the most beneficial day for the U.S. economy. We'll have to wait and see. But again, after this week, I think we kind of lighten up with some of the load and how scary some of this stuff looks going forward. But those are the big areas that I'm watching, and that's really the focus of right now. Again, what do you want to see here in the shorter term? 2 hour. Again, you're going to be coming most likely into, and this is the next level I'm watching, previous highs here at around 14.7. This is going to be a big level. If you start to get below this, I probably get a little bit more concerned for the downside thesis and something I'd be watching. I want to say that right now. That would be concerning if we start pushing below 14.7. Until then, though, we're kind of just chopping in this range. But I want to say this right now. You're moving into illiquid areas and you're not moving quick. This is a red flag for me, a deterrent, okay? And before we go too much further, I do want to bring up Bookmap and what's happening here, okay? I didn't do too much of anything today. I was very patient, didn't really just sat around, didn't do much. You can also see where a lot of that volume came in, like I mentioned, a huge, iceberg order to the buy side came in at the end of the day. But again, very calm day, not too much happened. ES, very range bound. Although Nasdaq was dropping, as you can see, you go over to ES and not too much was happening. Go look at SPY if you want to see a better visual for the day traders here, right? Not the best action. Chop, 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 drop into the day. That's about it, okay? So looking at Bookmap, you get a better visual of that with the heat map. You don't see a lot of buyers, not a lot of sellers. Volume's pretty minimal. CVD kind of just maintains at lows all day. Doesn't continue to break down. No clear direction, right? Again, Bookmap, eventually the link is down below so you can check them out. So that's what I'm looking at there. So again, I know sometimes y'all want big answers. You want me to have big call-outs and things that I'm expecting. But right now, I'm just waiting to see how we react at these levels. Because you are getting to levels that could be concerning if we start breaking below 14.7, right? And buyers don't step back in. But we have to understand, with the way that the selling is happening, this is the first day that I think that we've seen some continued selling throughout the day. but still the volume is non-existent. I didn't see a major reason for the drop on the day besides Dallas manufacturing. If that did come out based on the different expectations that were out there, that was the only conclusion I could come to on that. But there was no real bad news across the board. Okay. And again, I still think we continue to see good news coming out regarding some of this inflation while, these numbers continue to tick lower. And oil will be very important. And what's happening with PCE will be like I said, beginning of the week, PCE end of the week, biggest thing out there, right? So I'm watching energy. I'm watching what's happening with PCI core. And that's the focal point of this week right now. Okay. Nothing really else. I know you want day trades. I just don't have anything right now. This is what I'm looking at. I can only tell you guys what I'm looking at, right? Before I let you guys out of here though, I do want to say, if you're interested in trading on a broker that I use personally every single day, Interactive Brokers is who I use. The link is down below. I recommend checking them out. Again, I use them for fills primarily because the fills are phenomenal in comparison to most of the competition that I've ever used. I've used Webull, I've used E-Trade, I've used Thinkorswim, I've used countless brokers. The best fills I've had have come from Interactive Brokers, and I honestly, I swear by them. So if you're interested, check them out down below. I recommend just looking into their platform at the very least. Really cool platform, works out really well. Again, that's pretty much it for me. If you have any questions, comment down below. Have a good one, traders.